اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تحبس الدعاء اللهم اغفر لي الذنوب التي تنزل البلاء اللهم اغفر لي كل ذنب أذنبته وكل خطيئة أخطأتها اللهم إني أتقرب إليك بذكرك وأستشفع بك إلى نفسك وأسألك بجودك أن تدنيني من قربك وأن توزعني شكرك وأن تلهمني ذكرك اللهم إني أسألك سؤال خاضع متذلل خاشع أن تصامعني وترحمني وتجعلني بقسمك راضيا قانعا وفي جميع الأحوال متواضعا اللهم وأسألك سؤال من اشتدت فاقته وأنزل بك عند الشدائد حاجته وعظم فيما عندك رغبته اللهم عظم سلطانك وعلى مكانك وخفي مكرك وظهر أمرك وغلب قهرك وجرت قدرتك ولا يمكن الفرار من حكومتك اللهم لا أجد لذنوبي غافرا ولا لقبائي ساترا ولا لشيء من عملي القبيح بالحسن مبدلا غيرك لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك وبحمدك ظلمت نفسي وتجرأت بجهلي وسكنت إلى قديم ذكرك لي ومنك علي اللهم مولاي كم من قبيح سترته وكم من فاضع من البلاء أغلته وكم من إثار وقيته وكم من مجروع دفعته وكم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرته اللهم عظم بلائي وأفرت بي سؤالي وقصرت بي أعمالي وقادت بي أغلالي وأبسني عن نفعي بعد عملي وخدعتني الدنيا بغرورها ونفسي بجنايتها ومطالي يا سيدي فأسألك بعزتك أن لا يحجب عنك دعائي سوء عملي وفعالي ولا تفضحني بخفي ما اطلعت عليه من سري ولا تعجلني بالعقوبة على ما عملته في خلواتي من سوء فعلي وإساءتي ودوام تفريطي وجهالتي وكثرة شهواتي وغفلتي وكن اللهم بعزتك لي في كل الأحوال رؤوفا وعلي في جميع الأمور أتوفا إلهي وربي من لي غيرك أسأله كشف ضري والنظر في أمري الهی و مولاي اجريت علي حكما اتبعت فيه هوى نفسي ولم احترز فيه من تزيين عدوي فغرني بما اهوى واسده على ذلك القضاء فتجاوزت بما جرى علي من ذلك بعد حدودك وخالفت بعض أوامرك فلك الحمد علي في جميع ذلك ولا حجة لي فيما جرى علي فيه قضاك والزمني حكمك وبلاك وقد أتيتك يا إلهي بعد تقصيري وإسرافي على نفسي معتذرا نادما منكسرا مستقيلا مستغفرا منيبا مغرا مذنا معترفا لا أجد مفرا مما كان مني ولا مفزعا أتوجه إليه في أمري غير قبولك عذري وإدخالك إياي في سعة رحمتك اللهم فاقبل عذري وارحم شدة ضري وفكني من شده وثاقي يا رب ارحم ضعف بدني ورقة جلدي ودقة عظمي يا من بدأ خلقي وذكري وتربيتي وبري وتغذيتي هبني لابتداء كرمك وصالف برك بي يا إلهي وسيدي وربي أتراك معذبي بنارك بعد توحيدك وبعد من طوى عليه قلبي من معرفتك ولهجا به لساني من ذكرك واعتقده ضميري من حبك وبعد صدق اعترافي ودعائي خاضعا لربوبيتك هيهات أنت أكرم من أن تزيغ من ربيته أو تبعد من أدنيته أو تشرد من آويته أو تسلم إلى البلاء من كفيته ورحمته وليت شعري يا سيدي وإلهي ومولاي أتسلط النار على وجوه خرت لعظمتك ساجدة وعلى ألسن نطقت بتوحيدك صادقة وبشكرك مودعة وعلى قلوب اعترفت بإلهيتك محققة وعلى ضمائر هوت من العلم بك حتى صارت خاشعة وعلى جوارح سعت إلى أوطان تعبدك طائعة وأشارت باستغفارك مذنة ما كذا الظن بك ولا أخبرنا بفضلك عنك يا كريم يا رب وأنت تعلم ضعفي عن قليل من بلاء الدنيا وعقوباتها وما يجري فيها من المكاره على أهلها ألا أن ذلك بلاء ومكروه قليل مكثوه يسير بقاؤه قصير مدته فكيف احتمالي لبلاء الآخرة وجليل وقوع المكاره فيها وهو بلاء تطول مدته ويدوم مقامه ولا يخفف عن أهله لأنه لا يكون إلا عن غضبك وانتقامك وسخطك وهذا ما لا تقوم له السماوات والأرض يا سيدي فكيف لي وأنا عبدك الضعيف الذليل الحقير المسكين المستكين يا إلهي وربي وسيدي ومولاي لأي الأمور إليك أشكو ولما منها أزج وأبكي لعليم العذاب وشدته أم لطول البلاء ومدته فلئن سيرتني للعقوبات مع أعدائك وجمعت بيني وبين أهل بلائك وفرقت بيني وبين أحبائك وأوليائك فأبني يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي وربي صبرت على عذابك فكيف أصبر على فراقك وابني صبرت على حر نارك فكيف أصبر عن النظر إلى كرامتك أم كيف أسكن في النار ورجائي عفوك فبعزتك يا سيدي ومولاي أقسم صادقا لئن تركتني ناطقا لأضجن إليك بين أهلها زجيج العاملين ولأصرخن إليك صراخ المستصرخين ولأبكين عليك بكاء الفاقدين ولأنادينك أين كنت يا ولي المؤمنين يا غاية آمال العارفين يا غياث المستغيثين يا حبيب قلوب الصادقين ويا إله العالمين أفتراك سبحانك يا إلهي وبحمدك تسمع فيها صوت عبد مسلم سجن فيها بمخالفته وذاق طعم عذابها بمعصيته وهو بسبعين أطباقها بجرمه وجريرته وهو يضج إليك ضجيج مؤمل لرحمتك ويناديك بلسان أهل توحيدك ويتوسل إليك بربوبيتك يا مولاي فكيف يبقى في العذاب وهو يرجو ما سلف من علمك أم كيف تؤلمه النار وهو يأمل فضلك ورحمتك أم كيف يحرقه لهيبها وأنت تسمع صوته وترى مكانه أم كيف يشتمل عليه زفيرها وأنت تعلم ضعفه أم كيف يتغلغل بين أطباقها وأنت تعلم صدقه ام کیف تزجره زبانیتها و هو ینادیک یا ربه ام کیف یرجو فضلک فی عتقی منها فتترکه فیها هیهات ما ذلک الظن بک ولا المعروف من فضلک ولا مشبع لما آملت به الموحدین من برک و احسانک فبالیقین اقطع لولا ما حکمت به من تعذیب جاهدیک و قضیت به من اخلاد ماندیک لجعلت النار كلها بردا وسلاما وما كان لأحد فيها مغرا ولا مقاما لكنك تقدست أسماؤك أقسمت أن تملأها من الكافرين من الجنة والناس أجمعين وأن تخلد فيها المعاندين وأن تجل ثناؤك قلت مبتدئا وتطولت بالإنعام متكرما أفمن كان مؤمنا كمن كان فاسقا لا يستوون إلهي وسيدي فأسألك بالقدرة التي قدرتها وبالقضية التي حتمتها وحكمتها وغلبت من عليه أجريتها أن تهب لي في هذه الليلة وفي هذه الساعة كل جرم أجرمته وكل ذنب أذنبته وكل قبيح أسررته وكل جهل عملته كتمته أو أعلنته أخفيته أو أظهرته وكل سيئة أمرت بإثباتها الكرام الكاتبين الذين وكلتهم بحفظ ما يكون مني وجعلتهم شهودا علي مع جواري وكنت أنت الرقيب علي من ورائهم والشاهد لما خفي عنهم وبرحمتك أخفيته وبفضلك سترته وأن توفر عذري من كل خير أنزلته أو إحسان فضلته أو بر نشرته أو رزق بسطته أو ذنب تغفره أو خطأ تستره يا ربي يا ربي يا رب يا إلهي وسيدي ومولاي ومالك رقي يا من بيده ناصيتي يا عليما بضري ومسكنتي يا خبيرا بفقري وفاقتي يا ربي يا ربي يا رب أسألك بحقك وقدسك وأعظم صفاتك وأسمائك أن تجعل أوقاتي من الليل والنهار بذكرك معمورة وبخدمتك موصولة وأعمالي عندك مقبولة حتى تكون أعمالي وأورادي كلها وردا واحدا وحالي في خدمتك سرمدا يا سيدي يا من علي مولي يا من إليه شكوت أحوالي یا ربی یا ربی یا رب قو علی خدمتک جوارحی واشدد علی العزیمت جوانحی و ابلی الجد فی خشیتک و الدوام فی الاتصال بخدمتک حتی اسرع الیک فی میادین السابقین و اسرع الیک فی البارزین و اشتاق الی قربک فی المشتاقین و ادنو منک دنو المخلصین و اخافک مخافت الموقنین و اجتمع فی جوارک مع المؤمنین. اللهم و من ارادنی بسوء فأرده و من کادنی فکده واجعلنی من احسن عبیدک نصیبا عندک و اقربهم منزلة منک و اخصهم زلفة لدیک فانه لا ینال ذلک الا بفضلک وجد لی بجودک واعطف علی بمجدک واحفظنی برحمتک واجعل لسانی بذکرک لهجا و قلبی بحبک متیما و من علی بحسن اجابتک و اقلنی عثرتی واغفر زلتی فانک غلیت علی عبادک بعبادتک و امرتهم بدعائک و ضمنت لهم الاجابه فالیک یا رب نصبت وجهی و الیک یا رب مددت یدی فبعزتک استجب لی دعایی و بلغنی منای ولا تقطع من فضلک رجایی واکفنی شر الجن والانس من اعدایی یا سریع الرضا اغفر لمن لا یملک الا الدعا فانک فعال لما تشاء یا من اسمه دوا و ذکره شفا و طاعته غنا ارحم من رأس مال الرجا و سلاح البکا یا سابق النعم یا دافع النقم یا نور المستوشین فی الظلم یا عالما لا یعلم صل علی محمد و آل محمد وافعل بی ما انت اهله و صلی الله علی رسوله والائمة المیامین من آله و سلم تسلیما کثیرا. فاتحه مع الصلوات.
Mu'mineen, we have about 3 minutes for namaz. We'll be having namaz Jamaat on the other side. Okay. And Maulana Sheikh should be here in another 5 minutes.
إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. حبيبي टाइम થઈ ગયું છે. આર્યું ચોરીનું ઘડિયાળ છે તારી પાસે? الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا حجة الله أشهد أن أمير المؤمنين وإمام المتقين عليا حجة الله هيا على الصلاة هيا على الصلاة هيا على الفلاح هيا على الفلاح هيا على خير العمل هيا على خير العمل. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله لا إله إلا الله. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد.
محمد وآل محمد صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله أشهد أن عليا ولي الله أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير الأعمال حي على خير الأعمال. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. استغفر الله ربي من كل ذنب وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل يا أيها الكافرون لا أعبد ما تعبدون ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد ولا أنا عابد ما عبدتم ولا أنتم عابدون ما أعبد لكم دينكم ولي دين. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربنا. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. رب اغفر لي ولوالدي وللمؤمنين يوم يقوم الحساب. رب ارحمهما كما ربياني صغيرا. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بحول الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله. الله سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله. الله سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله. الله استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا ولي العافية نسألك اللهم العافية عافية الدين والدنيا والآخرة. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. الحمد لله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. صل على محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك موجبات رحمتك وعزائم مغفرتك والنجاة من النار ومن كل بلية والفوز بالجنات والرضوان في دار السلام وجوار نبيك محمد وآله السلام. اللهم ما بنا من نعمة فمنك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. أشهد أن محمد رسول الله. أشهد أن عليا ولي الله. أشهد أن عليا حجة الله. حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح حي على خير العمل حي على خير العمل. قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. استغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. إذا جاء نصر الله والفتح ورأيت الناس يدخلون في دين الله أفواجا فسبح بحمد ربك واستغفر إنه كان توابا. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بحول الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. كذلك الله ربنا. الله أكبر. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم ادخلنا في كل خير أدخلت فيه محمد وآل محمد وأخرجنا من كل سوء أخرجت منه محمد وآل محمد. وصل على محمد وآل محمد. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. الله أكبر. بسم الله وبالله. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بحول الله. بسم الله الرحمن الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده.
الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده.
الله أكبر. بحول الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله. سبحان الله والحمد لله ولا إله إلا الله والله. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر. سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي العظيم وبحمده. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده.
الله أكبر. استغفر الله ربي وأتوب إليه. الله أكبر.
سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان الله سبحان ربي الأعلى وبحمده. يا لطيف ارحم عبدك الضعيف. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
الله أكبر. الحمد لله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. السلام عليك أيها النبي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام علينا وعلى عباد الله الصالحين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أستغفر الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم الرحمن الرحيم ذو الجلال والإكرام وأتوب إليه. اللهم إنه ليس لي علم بموضع رزقي وإنما أطلبه بخطرات تخطر على قلبي فأجول في طلبه البلدان وعفانا فيما أنا طالب كالحيران. لا أدري أفي سحل هو أم فيه جبل أم في أرض أم في السماء أم في بر أم في بحر وعلى يدي من قبل ما هو قد علمت أن علمه عندك وأسبابه بيدك وأنت الذي تقسمه بلطفك وتسببه برحمتك. اللهم فصل على محمد وآله واجعل يا ربي رزقا قليلا واسعا ومطلبه سهلا ومعقده قريبا ولا تؤنني بطلبي ما لم تقدر لي فيه رزقا فإنك غني عن عذابي وأنا فقير إلى رحمتك. فصل على محمد وآله وجد على عبدك بفضلك إنك ذو فضل عظيم.
Mu'mineen, the rest of the program will be in the men's hall.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. हुसैन जाता है मरने को ऐ मेरी زینب قریب آ گیا، اب وقت آخری زینب، سلام تم پہ اے بابا کی لاڈلی زینب۔ زینب نے کہا کون ہے پردیس میں میرا، کیوں جاتے ہو تم چھوڑ کے بھیا مجھے تنہا۔ زینب کو ہر ایک موڑ پہ تڑ پائے گی دنیا، یاد آؤ گے بھیا، ہے یاد آؤ گے بھیا۔ بعد آپ کے ہوگا میری غربت کا یہ عالم، اس وقت غریبی بھی کرے گی میرا ماتم۔ سادات کو جب راہ میں دے گا کوئی صدقہ، یاد آؤ گے بھیا، یاد آؤ گے بھیا، یاد آئے گا بھیا مجھے ارمان تمہارا، تم دیکھ نہیں پائے ہو اکبر کا جو صحرا۔ دعوت کوئی شادی کی مدینے میں جو دے گا، یاد آؤ گے بھیا، ہے یاد آؤ گے بھیا۔ اس ماہ سے منسوب تھی بھیا میری خوشیاں، تھی سب سے بڑی عید میری تیسری شعبان۔ شعبان کے جب چاند کو دیکھے گی یہ بہنا، یاد آؤ گے بھیا۔ زینب کو ہر ایک موڑ پہ تڑ پائے گی دنیا، یاد آؤ گے بھیا۔ دیدار بھی ہو جائے گا بیٹی کے بہانے، کیا شام کے زندان میں آؤ گے سلانے۔ سوئے گی نہیں جب میری لوری سے سکینہ، یاد آؤ گے بھیا، یاد آؤ گے بھیا۔ زینب کو ہر ایک موڑ پہ تڑ پائے گی دنیا، یاد آؤ گے بھیا۔ صلوات۔
Sheikh Bilal, respected elders, brothers and sisters in Iman, Adam Allah ajurna wa ajurakum. Tomorrow Friday, Salatul Jumah will start at 12:30 p.m., starting with Dua Nudba with Sheikh Bilal. On Saturday, we will be commemorating the Wafaat of Hazrat Muslim ibn Aqil. The program will begin at 8:15, starting with Surah Yasin, Salat, Marsha, Majlis, Matam and Ziyarat. On Sunday, we will have our day of Arafat, Amal, with Sheikh Bilal, starting at 3 p.m. with Asr Salat, followed by our day of Arafat, Amal. And on Monday, starting at 7:30 a.m., we will have our Eid al-Adha Salat with Sheikh Bilal. The program will start at 7:30 a.m. with Dua Nudba, followed by Eid Salat and breakfast. We have a quick announcement to make. We are urging members to please refrain from putting coins in the Sadaqah and Imam Zaman boxes, as it's becoming extremely difficult when it comes to making our deposits. Tonight's Surah Yasin has been sponsored for the Ithal Thawab of the Marhumeens that are displayed on the screen. Let us all recite Surah Fatiha for all Marhumeen. Lastly, please join me in reciting the ayah of Amma Yujib 5 times for all those who are sick here and around the world. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amma yujibul musta'riza da'u wa yakshifu su. 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 Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Please recite aloud salawat for Sheikh Bilal. Allahumma salli ala
And your loudest salawat for ta'ajil faraj sahib al-asr wa zaman. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بذكرنا المسائب آل Muhammad. May Allah increase in our reward for commemorating the difficulties of Ali Muhammad. Tonight marks the 7th night of the month of Dhul Hijjah, in which these first 10 nights are important nights to pay attention to for ibadat, for a'mal, for the beseeching of Allah for your du'as. Specifically, before we begin our topic of discussion tonight, the 9th of Dhul Hijjah is known as Yawm al-Arafat, which happens to be Sunday this year, so it should be something that each of us can participate in. The a'mal of the day of Arafat, to explain to you how significant they are, There are a variety of a'mal to be performed, one of which is listed as fasting on the day of Arafat. That fasting is mustahab. However, with exception, it is mustahab until and unless it prevents you from being able to recite the du'as of the day of Arafat. If by the fact of fasting it means that I don't have the energy or I won't be able to exert myself in supplicating Allah on the day of Arafat, it's no longer mustahab to fast on that day. The significance of mentioning this is to point out that typically we consider one of the best a'mal we can perform on a day is to fast. But here Allah is telling you, no, that the best a'mal that you can perform on this day is dua. And that fasting should not be something that prevents you from dua on this day. Now the du'as that are recommended on this day, one of them which is very well known is the dua of Imam Hussein, the dua of Arafat of Imam Hussein. There's the du'as of Sayfa Sajadiyah, there's the dua of Imam Zain al-Abidin for the day of Arafat. There are du'as of istighfar, which is one of the most important du'as that we can make on the day of Arafat. And the significance of Arafat, if we wanted to know the a'mal that are recommended, the most important is dua, which is why if fasting prevented us from dua, even fasting is no longer recommended. So being that it falls on a Sunday, now, amongst the a'mal and the performance of these a'mal and these du'as, more often they're associated with the afternoon of the day of Sunday. So technically you can sleep in, but I didn't say that. It's mustahab in the afternoon, after Salat al-Dhuhr and Asr, after Asr in the afternoon, before the time of Maghrib is the peak time for dua, but that doesn't mean that if I can't do it at that time, I shouldn't do it at all. As a matter of fact, the entirety of this day, starting from the beginning in the morning, that if one has any availability in this day and this time with responsibilities, obligations, whatnot, to dedicate to dua, don't hesitate and wait that, oh, if I can't do it in the afternoon, then what's the point of me doing it? No. As a matter of fact, dua becomes preeminent on this day at any hour of day and moment that I can. If, let's say, for example, reciting, listening to, spending time with a dua is difficult, then the least of those du'as is istighfar. To ask Allah to forgive me. To recite salawat upon the Prophet and his family. Sallu ala Muhammad wa to have the communication between abd and ma'bud, the slave and the one who he is the slave of. So these are the important things to participate in, and Sunday is an opportunity that it aligns with our fiscal calendar, that it isn't a difficult day for us to ensure that we don't miss this opportunity. Hence the days of Dhul Hijjah are important days for us to pay attention to, including the particular day of the day of Arafat, in which dua holds a great status for us, and it's something that we should not miss. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The 7th of this month marks the shahadat of our 5th Imam and 7th of the Ma'asumeen, Imam Muhammad ibn Ali al-Baqir ilm al-Nabiyyin. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. From the life of the A'imma, there are many lessons that we can take, and especially the volatile time period in which our 5th Imam's life took place. There are many lessons that apply to us and apply to our society, and that we learn from and we benefit from, that were uniquely established in the character of the Imam. We'll mention 3 of these points with the explanation of how it is in the fadilat of this Imam, and why for us it is a great loss for us that this Imam, that we commemorate his shahadat, even by his own instruction. Inshallah we'll explain. The first of these points, with your loudest of salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The authority of imamat is established and understood as being divinely appointed leadership by Allah. The concept of it being divinely appointed and it being absolute and perfect in its authority is something that was understood and established in the character of the 5th Imam. Our 5th Imam, who was born in the 57th year after Hijrah, is one who is known as Hashimi and Alawi. Let me explain what that means. Hashimi is the one who is from the children of the Banu Hashim, and this means that he is the grandson of the Prophet, and that he comes from the side, and that his mother's side is from the side of the Holy Prophet. And Alawi means that he is from the children of Imam Ali, and his paternal side comes from Imam Ali. This Imam uniquely was the one whose father was our 4th Imam, and whose mother was Fatima bint al-Hasan, the daughter of Imam Hassan. So in this way he inherited both from his mother's side, from Imam Hassan, and from his father's side, from Imam Hussein. Hence he had a unique status.
And some assume that the mansab of imamat and the responsibility of imamat, because he possessed both of these attributes, was something that he had the right and the daring to be able to claim. However, when we look at the claims of imamat and the understanding of imamat, even though there is a lineage that is associated with this process, it's not the lineage that the imam relied upon to be able to announce and to show his authority over others. You see, if we were to say that the purity of Imam al-Baqir, because both his mother and father came from Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein, that this is why we knew that he was an imam, then when we look at personalities like our 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, even our 12th imam, we would say that their fathers, yes, are from the holy lineage, but their mothers were what we called al-Walad, that we explained, that they had been slaves at one point in time that were freed by the Aimma, and therefore they became the mothers of the imams. Therefore, while lineage is something significant to pay attention to, that the children of the Holy Prophet possess this characteristic, this alone was not sufficient for us to say that this is an imam. And the way that we knew this wasn't sufficient was that when we take a look and we see at his attributes, he never announced with himself to say that this is my status and these are my parents, therefore obey me and follow my instruction. Rather, when we wanted to see the fadilat of the mother of Imam Baqir, we saw that it was our 6th Imam who would introduce the character of his mother, Fatima bint al-Hasan. Our 6th Imam would elaborate and say that from amongst all of the children of Imam Hassan, there was not one who was similar to the mother of my father, Fatima bint al-Hasan alayha salam. In one instance that Imam Sadiq explained, he says there was an instance where Bibi Fatima bint al-Hasan was by a wall, and in that moment, some narrations say she was praying by the wall, some say that she had stopped by this wall, but in that moment that wall began to fall upon her, and she immediately called out and said, "Stop, Allah has not given you the permission to fall yet." And that object stopped there until she moved herself away, and then when she moved herself away it fell, and Imam Zain al-Abidin gave sadaqah in this moment. This narration of our 6th Imam, which is authentic and we don't doubt this narration, presented to us 3 facts. One, that this lady had the ability to speak to even objects that were subject to her authority. And meaning that wall, upon hearing her voice and her saying stop, stopped in that instance. Meaning that that object, as all objects do that submitted to the wilayah and the authority of Allah, also recognized the authority of this lady. The second point that she mentions in her speech is that she had knowledge of the unseen, which is why she makes the statement that Allah has not yet given you the authority, it is not yet the time for you to fall. That she herself knew that this position and authority of what it was that Allah had wanted and dictated, and that if something violated it, she was able to speak out against it. The final of this information in the story that was significant for us to pay attention to is the attribute of giving sadaqah even after the difficulty had not befallen us. So the example where our 6th Imam elaborates and says, in this moment the 4th Imam, upon seeing this incident, gave charity on behalf of his wife, was an explanation for us to understand and say that if you happen to avoid a difficulty, if for example some bad thing is about to happen and you survive the incident, give charity immediately afterwards as well. As-sadqa tadfa'ul bala. Charity is what keeps away difficulty. If a difficulty has been averted from me, then give more charity to ensure that if there is another difficulty after it, the next one is averted as well too. Hence this attribute of the status of Imam Baqir's mother was not something he used to announce and tell people that yes, honor me, know that because my family contains this pure lineage I am of this status. No, it was after him that we discovered and uncovered the superiority of the status of his family. Meaning that imamat and its position, the imam did not elaborate and say, honor me or respect me because of my lineage. He was honored and respected because of his attachment to the message of Allah and his piety, not because necessarily of who his parents were. Hence, when we take a look and we see the attributes of knowing who the imam is, we see the attributes of knowing the imam through 2 elements that we mentioned in his youth. One, that it is Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, the companion of the Holy Prophet, who says that the Prophet himself told me, "O Jabir, before you leave this world, you will see a son of mine who is known as Muhammad. And when you see him, give him my salam, and he will be the one who will يَبْقُرَ الْعِلْمَ بَقْرًا, that he will be the one who splits apart knowledge to its fundamental sources. And that Jabir is the one who makes this introduction to us in the world, that it's described and said that Jabir in his old age, when he had gone blind, would be seen sitting in Masjid al-Nabawi and calling out, where is the one who is known as Baqir? And people would say, you've lost your mind, O Jabir. And Jabir would say, I have not lost my mind. The Prophet promised me, and whatever the Prophet promises is the truth. And it's described to say that at one point in time when he is sitting there, a young boy passes before him and he says, I smell the scent of Rasulullah. I hear the footsteps of Rasulullah. And he meets this Imam of ours, Muhammad ibn Ali al-Baqir alayhi salam. Thus the definitive lineage of Imamat is introduced to us not by the person himself, but rather by the authentic narrators of the hadith and teachings of the Holy Prophet of where will Imamat go and what is the lineage of Imamat through the fifth Imam. Our Prophet established very clearly for us that is authentically accepted by all of the people of that time. That hence we knew who the Imam was. The other attribute that gives us guarantee and certainty in who is the Imam is the fact of the Imam's presence in the field of Karbala at the age of 3. Some narrations say 3, some say 4. That at the age of 4, that he is present in the field of Karbala and he is one of the authentic narrators of the Waqi'ah of Karbala. Now a normal person you can ask and say, what can a 4-year-old tell me? How can I know of the authenticity of the saying of a 4-year-old? But you see, age is relative to you and I. Age is not relative to an Imam. An Imam is an Imam from the moment of his birth to the moment of his shahad. لَقَدْ آتَيْنَاهُ الْحُكْمَ وَكَانَ السَّبِيًّا. That Allah describes and says, when He gives authority to someone, He gives authority to someone, even if they happen to be a child in their infancy, that Allah has the ability to establish their authority. Which is why when we look at the hadith of Ahlul Bayt, we don't look in question and say, what was the age of the Imam when he said this? Had he reached maturity? Was he immature? What was his age? What was his status? Rather, the statement of the Imam itself speaks for the fact that the one who is saying this is not in any way hindered by the age at which it was said. So when we look and we see the Tariq of Karbala, and we see that this Imam is one of its narrators from the age of 4, we understand that the Imam was someone who at the age of 4 both had the understanding of how to give this narration and the wherewithal that whatever he said we can accept as fact without taking into consideration. كَانَ بَالِغًا أَوْ لَيْسَ كَذَلِكَ. Was he mature? Was he not mature? And maturity is not a question when it comes to the hadith of Ahlul Bayt. In this way, the attribute of the Imam explained to us some of the fundamentals we needed to know about the Imam. 1, the Imam is someone who is divinely appointed, and their status and their position was something that was disclosed to us from the beginning. It is not with haphazard intention that we selected the Imam or that we uncovered the Imam at a later point in time, but rather that the Imam was someone who was established from the initiation and enunciation of Islam, and even before, from the initiation and the enunciation of Adam and the children of Adam. Second, that the knowledge of the Imam has no restriction upon it that the Imam reaches an age, then he possesses knowledge. But rather that the Imam has knowledge and ability to communicate that information from the moment of his presence on this earth. Which brings us to the second point of understanding, that if one in the fundamentals of faith, our Imam was someone who gave us guidance and his example is something that establishes our understanding of the role of Imamat, then also in society, the second point teaches us the status of the Imam. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
The history of Islam has a very interesting phase that isn't often discussed, that the Khulafa had prevented the narrations from our Holy Prophet, not from anyone else. But to narrate a hadith from the Holy Prophet, to write a hadith from the Holy Prophet was forbidden in the community of Islam under the Banu Umayyah, beginning from the second Khalifa until the Banu Umayyah, until 98 or 99 years after Hijrah. At about 99 years after Hijrah, this restriction of narrating hadith from the Holy Prophet was lifted. And at this point in time, it was permissible to share information from the Prophet and share the narrations of the Holy Prophet. This happens in the lifetime and in the imamat of our fifth Imam. When we refer to our Imam as Imam-al-Baqir, the one who split open knowledge, and the other title that he's known as Baqiru ilm al-Nabiyyin, the one who split open the knowledge of the Anbiya. The meaning of this title, he could have been known as many other titles. He could have been known as the one who spreads knowledge, the one who teaches knowledge, the one who provides knowledge and information. But the dictate of his title as given to him by our holy prophet was the one who will split open knowledge to its source, to its kernel, and expose it to the world. This was to say that at this point in time in the life of the Imam, when it becomes permissible now to be able to narrate and to teach the teachings of Ahlul Bayt, to teach the teachings of Rasulullah, it wasn't enough that people would hear the message of the Prophet, but rather there had to be someone who would explain the message of the Prophet. Shall I give you an example? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. One of the biggest nawasib of the time, one of the biggest haters and enemies of Ahlul Bayt, one of the haters of Imam Ali was a companion who at that point in time came forward into the city of Medina and announced, and he says, I believe, na'uz billah, that Ali ibn Abi Talib was not adil. He was a zalim. He was an oppressor, and I challenge the people of Medina to come and to argue with me on this fact. The people of Medina said, what are you challenging us for? The grandson of Amir al-Mu'mineen is present, go ask him. So he says, show me where and I will debate him and you will see that I will prove that Ali ibn Abi Talib is a zalim. So they took him to the house of Imam Baqir. When they present him in front of the Imam, he comes and he brings the claim and he says, I claim and I challenge you to prove me wrong that Ali ibn Abi Talib was an oppressor. That after the battle of Siffin or the battle of Jamal, he became an oppressor, that he fought against the wife of the Prophet, he fought against the known Khalifa of the time, Mal'un Muawiyah, and he became an oppressor at this point in time. Imam al-Baqir says, okay, no problem. He says, this is what you believe? You want me to disprove you? No problem. He says, let me ask you something. Do you believe in Hadith al-Manzila? He says, yes, I believe in Hadith al-Manzila, that our Prophet came and he said that this Ali is to me as Harun was to Musa, except that there is no Prophet after me. He says, do you believe in Hadith al-Ghadir? He says, yes, I believe in Ghadir, that Rasulullah said, Man kuntu mawla fahada aliyun mawla. Allahumma wali man walahu wa'adi. I say that whoever is master, I am, this Ali is his master. This adu, this enemy of Ahlul Bayt says, yes, I believe in all of this. But I believe at this time, Ali was just. But after the shahadat of the Prophet, he became unjust. He became an oppressor and he died an oppressor, na'uzu billah. He says, at that time, what the Prophet says was right. But after this is when Ali changed his behavior. Imam al-Baqir says, let me ask you something. Do you believe that whatever the Prophet said was from Allah? He says, yes, I believe that. He says, then either one of two things happened. That either Allah did not know that after giving these titles to Ali ibn Abi Talib that he would become an oppressor. In which case, you don't believe in the authority of Allah and you don't recognize the true position of Allah, that Allah is the one who knows everything that is going to happen. And if you believe this, then you are a kafir and there is no point in debating with you about Ali because you don't know who Allah is. The other option is that Allah knew what Ali was going to do. And Allah still dictated and said that Ali is beloved to me. Ali is the wali of Rasulullah. Ali is the authority after Rasulullah. No matter what Ali did was right because Allah approved it from the beginning. In which case your claim that Ali is an oppressor stands against Allah, and again you have cast yourself out of the religion. Ya Ali. You see, the danger to Islam in this time period was not that people couldn't find out what was said by the Prophet, but that they didn't understand what the Prophet said. In this case, when we see that he is Baqiru ilm al-Nabiyyin, the one who splits apart and shows you the kernel of knowledge, is that they were willing to accept that the Prophet said yes, all these wonderful things. But then they would dare to say that Ali ibn Abi Talib changed after the Prophet. They tried to confuse the knowledge of Islam, and that's why it was necessary for one to be present who would then go through and explain what it meant, so that when this Prophet made this statement, it means that مَا يَنْتِقُ عَنِ الْهَوَىٰ إِنْ هُوَ إِلَّا وَحْيٌ يُوحَىٰ, that he doesn't speak from himself, that it has come from Allah. And if Allah has given this dictate, how can you imagine that Allah didn't know who Ali is? How can you imagine that Allah didn't know who the authority is being given to in this earth? In this way, we saw that necessity of changing society by explaining the teachings of the Quran and the teachings of our Prophet. In the verse that we began our discussion with, that comes from Surah An-Nisa, verse number 54, We look and we see Allah is saying, فَقَدْ آتَيْنَا آلَ إِبْرَاهِيمَ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةَ وَآتَيْنَاهُمْ مُلْكٌ عَظِيمًا. And Allah in this Quran is making the statement, and He says, and certainly we have given to the children of Ibrahim the book, the wisdom, and we have given them a grand kingdom. When our fifth Imam was asked about this verse, that who is this in reference to? The Imam replies and he says, this is in reference to us, the Ahlul Bayt, that we are the children of Ibrahim. How unusual for the people to be able to accept that the Quran dictates and says that Allah has given to the children of Ibrahim the book, wisdom, and a great kingdom, but then they would deny that us, the children of Rasulullah, are given to the same status as the children of Ibrahim. Therefore, understand that the Quran is the one that is dictating our wilayah and authority by describing us as the children of Ibrahim, who possess with them the book, the wisdom, and a great kingdom. In this attribute, we see the Imam explaining that the Quran is the one, that you who question the verses of the Quran or don't understand the verses of Quran, when you read the Quran correctly and understand the depth of its meaning, you cannot deny that there is an authority by Allah that is divinely appointed to then continue this message after the Anbiya. Hence we see that after the year 99, in which the process was open for people to discuss and debate and to learn and to copy and to teach the hadith of the Holy Prophet, that it was necessary for one not only to narrate these ahadith, to narrate and teach what the Quran was saying, but to explain what it meant and to explain what was its depth of meaning. When we refer to him as Imam al-Baqir, the one who splits apart knowledge, the depth of this title is something that we have only begun to scratch the surface. That the reality of our ability to understand Islam today begins from this time period in the life of our fifth Imam. That prior to this, though our Imam were present, they were not allowed to present and to teach people publicly and openly all of the teachings of the Holy Prophet. That when this begins, it is in the dawr of this Imam. Hence we see his impact on society and teaching, that he lays the fundamentals of the schooling and education that was continued by his son, our sixth Imam. And that is what we talk about and believe, that the teacher of the madhab is Imam al-Sadiq, but it's fundamental that people would know to turn to Ahlul Bayt was established in the life of our fifth Imam. His impact on teaching goes even further by the process of announcing that the Imam himself would say, and this is one of the fundamentals that's very significant for us as the followers of Ahlul Bayt, that he would say, anything that you hear from me has come from my father, which has come from his father, which has come from Rasulullah, which has come from Jibreel, which has come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Which explains to the impact for us. Today, if we have i'timad, if we have yaqeen and certainty on the hadith of Ahlul Bayt as being a hujjah over us, as being an authority over us, it's because of the statement of our fifth Imam, that whatever I say is as if it came from Rasulullah directly, that there is no difference from what I say to you and what the Prophet has said to you. That if you can't return to the hadith of the Prophet directly, if you come to me, it will be the same as if you went to Rasulullah. Hence, madhab Ja'fari today, when you and I listen to a hadith of our sixth Imam, of our seventh Imam, of our ninth Imam, and we accept it and we base our fiqh upon it, we base our actions and our istihbab upon those actions, it is because we have certainty that whatever this Imam gave to me, as long as I can be certain it came from the Imam, it will not be different than what came from the Prophet himself. Thus the impact, the second impact of this Imam within society in its entirety of laying out how to approach and attach ourselves to the fundamental of faith. The third lesson that we speak of tonight, Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, is the impact to each of us in character. That these two examples that we've given, one brings us to the philosophy of faith. That if we choose to accept it or understand, then our philosophy is impacted by the reality of our Imam. The second, to our practicality of faith, that in our fiqh, that we understand the role and the dawr of the Imam to ensure that our fiqh was valid. But the third area that we saw the impact of the Imam was in the akhlaq of us as a community and a society. That the actions of the Imam continued to influence us. And that the actions of the Imam changed our behavior individually as well too. I'll mention 3 points in this. The first of these, One of the attributes in the descriptions of Imam al-Baqir is that he was always seen dressed elegantly and present within the markets amongst the people in the best of outfits, in the best of society and dress. When they questioned him, they said, Ya Ibn Rasulullah, we saw your forefathers would dress very plainly, very simply, yet we see you dress very well. Why do we see that your character is different than your forefathers? The Imam replied and he said, in the time of my forefathers, in the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the society itself did not have wealth to be able to dress well. Therefore, the Imam would carry himself at what was appropriate for the society, and therefore he dressed simply. Imam al-Baqir then explained that in our time, that society overall has improved its caliber, and to dress appropriately of the caliber of society gives me the opportunity to teach and to educate. Today, if I was to dress in the way that they were dressed at that time, it would make it difficult for people to believe in my authority over them. This description of the Imam and this explanation of the Imam gives us the responsibility that each of us in a society and a time should reflect the best characteristics of that society and the time. It's not enough that we dress according to the time, because at times society will not represent the morality of Islam. Therefore, it's not sufficient that whatever society is wearing out there that we too wear. No. Rather, the caliber of society, we need to dress the best of that caliber so that we have the ability to influence it well, and that we have the ability to move society with us as a member of that community. Till today, this takes effect and impact. And I've seen it myself, whether you look in this society here or you look across the world. In Iraq, I've sat with children who, when they want to ask a question, they look at the way that the cleric is dressed to see, is he from us? Does he wear clothes like we do? That he would understand our problems? Does he speak the dialect the way that we do? Does he understand our issues? Then they go and they approach for question. Same is true here in our society. The better the English you speak, you can't deny it. You know it's true. I know it's true. Hence, this attribute of being appropriate for the society you live in was something the Imam taught. The second of the things that we saw that the Imam teach us that relate in character is a very famous story where they say that one of the seniors of the Ahl Sunnah of that time, who didn't believe in the wilayat of Ahlul Bayt and saw himself as a scholar of the time, says at one time I witnessed that in the peak heat of the day, that Muhammad ibn Ali was out in the field with his servants working in the fields. And I saw this young man working in the field with his servants in the peak heat of the day, in which most people would seek security and would seek comfort away from the sun. I saw this young man out working in the fields. And I imagined to myself that I would go and reprimand this young man, that he's the grandson of the Prophet, yet he doesn't know better. And I went to him and I said, "Oh Muhammad ibn Ali, why is it that in the heat of the day, when the heat is so oppressive, I see you outside chasing this world and dunya to earn an income, instead of going and protecting yourself from the heat and being safe? What would you do if you were to die because of this heat outside chasing this world?" Imam al-Baqir replies to him, he says, "I would go before Allah without fault, in that I was the one who was seeking a halal sustenance when others were out and going seeking their safety and protection." This lesson of the Imam is one of the lessons that teaches us there's two differences: one of doing hard work, and two of where your income comes from. Many times we imagine that work to make money, and if you have money, then there's no need to do work. The Imam at this point in time was not in need of financial support or to have this income. He had income. His exerting effort was for the sake that Allah loves the one who exerts himself. In Islam, this fundamental is something that's very important to understand, because it goes against the contemporary society we live in. The society we live in believes do work to make money, and if you have money, you don't need to work. Islam says no, rizq is from Allah, but He loves to see His abd work hard, to offer and to make a physical effort, and to work is one of the sources of ibadat. For us, these two elements are separate. Allah will provide the rizq. It is our obligation to make an effort and to go out and struggle and to use our bodies in a good way. Which is why one of the hadith from our Holy Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there are 70 doors of ibadat of Allah, and the best of these doors is to work for a halal income. That when we go out and do work, it is an action of ibadat. It is something that is matloob from Allah. This lesson is so important to say, do not overexert yourself in chasing after work, because your rizq is with Allah and He will provide for you. But don't sit quietly at home and wait for that rizq to come to you, but rather exert some effort in this process. This lesson of the Imam is teaching us that separate the fact that if I have money, I don't have money, that's one element. The work that Allah wants to see me do is an action of ibadat, and to take care of one's family through this process of work is something Allah loves to see. Therefore, the Imam, by doing this action, is teaching us, exert yourselves in the way of Allah. Exert yourselves. Go out and do work. It's a good thing. It's something that's wanted. The third of these elements of where the Imam changes our character is the attributes of learning about and crying and knowing the Masa'ib of Imam Hussein. That today, what we know about the Masa'ib of Abu Abdullah, we know about the majlis of Imam Hussein, is done by the fundamental teachings of Imam al-Baqir. That this wasn't just something that he announced from his childhood, but through the extent of the life of the Imam, we saw him always teaching about and educating about the difficulties of Abu Abdullah, and making sure that the weeping of Imam Hussein was something that became a part of our character. Further to that, one of the interesting elements that we see is that in the final wasiyah of this Imam, he says to Imam Sadiq, he says, I will give you an amount of money, and I want you to use this amount of money that for the next 10 years, I want majlis to be held in the field of Mina on my behalf. This element of the Imam, there are two different descriptions. When we say that the Imam indicated that a majlis should be held in the days of Hajj in the field of Mina every year for 10 years, there are two explanations. One that says that the Imam, when the people would gather in Mina, wanted the masa'ib and the reality of his shahada to be explained to the people over this period of time. The other element that points to it, it says that the description of this majlis is the recitation of the masa'ib of his forefather Imam Hussein. That the Imam wanted that from his wealth, that the masa'ib of Imam Hussein should not be separated from the people, and it should be a tradition that is established in society. If we were to take a look today and we were to say that from amongst us, this should be an indication for us that some of the istihbab and the recommendation is promote, support the majlis of Imam Hussein. Make it an attribute that whether we are alive or if we are deceased, let that majlis of the Imam continue. It was something that we would say was taught to us by our Imam. If we were to say that it is simply the commemoration of the Masa'ib of Ahlul Bayt, then even that is something that was taught to us by our Imam to ensure that we, O people, do not neglect the majlis of Abu Abdullah, do not neglect the majlis of Ahlul Bayt. If you could hear some of those Masa'ib that our Imam said about his forefather, the description that is written that Imam al-Baqir, when he narrates and he says that when I saw my forefather, when I saw Abu Abdullah and his body was covered with wounds, the wounds on the body of Imam Hussein were such that as he would breathe, blood would pour forth from the wounds on his body. Every wound that he possessed was on the front of his body. The narration from Imam al-Baqir, he took his ring. He says, I say to you, there was not a space the size of this ring on the body of Imam Hussein where he did not have a wound, and that each of these was on him. One of the most painful statements that he makes, he says, I saw them kill Imam Hussein in a way worse than a person does not kill a dog. They killed the son of Zahra in the field of Karbala. They surrounded him from every direction. One who had a sword would hit him with a sword. One who had a spear would hit him with a spear. One who had arrows would shoot arrows. One of the Masa'ib that mentions in the final moments of Abu Abdullah, one of the Mal'ulin came forward, saw the lips part of Hussein ibn Ali, shot an arrow in the mouth of Imam Hussein. He says this was not enough. The one who had no weapon threw burning burning wood at Imam Hussein, the one who did not have burning wood threw stones at Abu Abdullah. He says, in this condition, I saw Imam Hussein being killed in the field of Karbala, but this was not all that I saw. When we went to Sham, I saw the head of my grandfather raised on a spear. I saw women and children throwing rocks at the forehead of Hussein ibn Ali. But I tell you, O mankind, this was still not as bad as when I saw my aunt Sakina in the Zindan of Sham, that it was the daughter of Abu Abdullah, how she was killed with oppression, how her janazah was buried inside of the Zindan, was one of the most difficult things that I saw. It was these realities of the Masaib of Ali Muhammad that Banu Umayyah could not take anymore. Hisham ibn Abdul Malik the Mal'un, the Khalifa of the time, made the intention to poison Imam al-Baqir. When the Imam is poisoned, we find that eventually it becomes too difficult for him. They said the sweat of death overcame his brow. His breathing became shallow. His hands and feet began to move. His eyes began to close until the soul of my Imam left his body. But oh Madlum Imam, you were surrounded by your children, you were surrounded by your women. Wa Husayna, the one who had no one around him except the one that was thirsty for his blood. They describe in that moment to give torture to the women. Mal'un Shimad takes the head of Imam Hussein, throws it to the women. They said, we heard the head of Abu Abdullah call out 3 times, Abbas! 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 ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون رضا بقضائه وتسليما لأمره. ماتم حسين.
عزیز و محمد باقر اٹھا جگ سے ہزار افسوس شہنشاہ دو عالم وہ اٹھا جگ سے ہزار افسوس. عزیز و محمد باقر اٹھا جگ سے ہزار افسوس. کھلا سر جعفر صادق کا کیا کہوں اے عزادارو. کھلا سر جعفر صادق کا کیا کہوں اے عزادارو. پڑی ہے دھوم ماتم کی جہاں میں آج عزادارو. اے عزیز و محمد باقر اٹھا ہزار افسوس. ملی راحت نہیں دم بھر علی کی آل کو صد ہے. ملی راحت نہیں دم بھر علی کی آل کو صد ہے. کسی کو مارا خنجر سے کسی کو زہر سے صد ہے. اے عزیز و محمد اٹھا جگ سے بیاں یوں جعفر صادق کے لاشیں پہ باقر کے بیان یوں جعفر صادق ہے لاشیں پہ باقر کے میرے بابا یہ کیسی نیند دل میں سوئے اے عزیز و محمد ہزار افسوس اٹھا تابوت مدینے میں ہزار افسوس باقر کا اٹھا تابوت مدینے میں ہزار افسوس باقر کا پر کیا کہوں کربل میں اٹھا لاشا نہیں شیکا اے عزیز و محمد باقر سوز اندھیرا ہو گیا جگ میں کھلا سر احمد کا اندھیرا ہو گیا جگ میں کھلا سر آج احمد کا عزادارو کرو ماتم اٹھا تابوت باقر کا اے عزیز و محمد سے ہزار افسوس سورۃ البقرۃ الفاتحہ توجہ زیادہ
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السلام عليك يا رسول الله يا نبي الله السلام عليك يا أمير المؤمنين يا علي بن أبي طالب السلام عليك يا فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء العالمين السلام عليك يا حسن المجتبى ورحمة الله وبركاته السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفة الله السلام عليك يا وارث نوح النبي الله السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله السلام عليك يا وارث علي أمير المؤمنين ولي الله السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء السلام عليك يا ابن خديجة الكبرى السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والبتر الموتور أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين فلعن الله أمة قتلتك ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة، لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها، ولم تلبسك بمدلهمات ثيابها، وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين، وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي، وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا، وأشهد الله وملائكته وأنبياءه ورسله أني بكم مؤمن وبإيابكم موقن، بشرائع دين أخواتي بعملي، وقلبي لقلبكم سر، وأمري لأمركم متبع، صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. السلام عليك يا ابن رسول الله، السلام عليك يا ابن نبي الله، السلام عليك يا ابن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن الحسين الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها الشهيد وابن الشهيد، السلام عليك أيها المظلوم وابن المظلوم، لعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك، ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. السلام عليكم يا أولياء الله وأحباءه، السلام عليكم يا أصفياء الله وأوداءه، السلام عليكم يا أنصار دين الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار رسول الله، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار فاطمة سيدة النساء العالمين، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي محمد الحسن بن علي الولي الزكي الناصح، السلام عليكم يا أنصار أبي عبد الله، بأبي أنتم وأمي طبتم، وطابت الأرض التي فيها دفنتم، وفزتم فوزا عظيما، فيا ليتني كنت معكم فأفوز معكم. السلام عليك يا أبا الفضل العباس ابن أمير المؤمنين، السلام عليك يا ابن سيد الوصيين، السلام عليك يا ابن أول القوم إسلاما، وأقدمهم إيمانا، وأقومهم بدين الله، وأهوطهم على الإسلام. أشهد لقد نصحت لله ولرسوله ولأخيك فنعم الأخ المواسي، فلعن الله أمة قتلتك، ولعن الله أمة ظلمتك، ولعن الله أمة استحلت منك المحارم وانتهكت حرمة الإسلام، فنعم الصابر المجاهد المحامي الناصر، والأخ الدافع عن أخيه المجيب إلى طاعته الرب الراغب فيما زهد فيه غيره من الثواب الجزيل والثناء الجميل، وألحقك الله بدرجته آبائك في جنات النعيم. اللهم إني تعرضت لزيارة أوليائك رغبة في ثوابك ورجاء لمغفرتك وجزيل إحسانك، فأسألك أن تصلي على محمد وآله الطاهرين، وأن تجعل رزقي بهم دارا وعيشي به قارا، وزيادتي بهم مقبولة، وحياتي بهم طيبة، وأدرجني إدراج المكرمين، واجعلني ممن ينقلب من زيارة مشاهد أحبائك مفلحا منجحا قد استوجب غفران الذنوب وستر العيوب وكشف الكروب، إنك أهل التقوى وأهل المغفرة. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليكم يا أئمة المسلمين، علي بن الحسين ومحمد بن علي وجعفر بن محمد وموسى بن جعفر وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي ورحمة الله وبركاته. السلام عليك يا حجة الله ابن الحسن يا صاحب العصر والزمان. السلام عليك يا خليفة الرحمن. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان. السلام عليك يا إمام الإنس والجان ورحمة الله وبركاته. وليك الحجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.